Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. If you would come in and quickly take your seat. Good evening. The formal meeting of the Richmond City Council will now come to order. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the necessary announcements regarding Spanish interpretation services at this time.
Spanish interpretation is available in the council chamber. Please see a representative at the rear of the room to receive the appropriate equipment. Spanish interpretation is also available through Microsoft Teams for virtual attendees in need of this service.
Disponemos de servicios de interpretación al español en la sala del consejo. Por favor, diríjase al representante atrás para recibir el equipo adecuado en la parte trasera de la sala. La interpretación en español también está poniéndose a disposición a través de Microsoft Teams para los participantes virtuales que necesiten dichos servicios.
Thank you. At this time, the invocation will be offered by Reverend Wendy Bullock of Trinity Baptist Church, after which will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Girl Scout Troop 21. Welcome, Reverend.
Let us pray. Lord, we want to thank you for today. We want to thank you for another opportunity to come together to do the business of the city of Richmond. Right now, oh God, we want you to bless those that have been ordained and authorized to do the work for the community. And before they start this session on this evening, we ask that you give them the courage, the wisdom, and the understanding to do those things that will be pleasing for the members of the community. Lord, you have blessed us before, and we thank you for all that you've done. So we're asking that you do it again. So continue to bless them as they do the work and find the purpose and the plan for the city of Richmond. Let all that they do on this evening be blessed. Let everyone be respectful of one another. Lord, we thank you in advance for all that we're asking for on this evening. So we ask right now, oh God, that all these things will be pleasing in your sight. In your mighty name we pray. In Jesus' name as well. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Bullock. Girl Scout Troop 21, if you would come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you would now please provide the chamber emergency evacuation announcement followed by the public speaker guidelines.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside of the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and into the assembly area located in the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually in hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period and/or public hearings are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before council are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which also demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address the question to staff members directly. All questions to be directed to the president of council. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and further disciplinary action as necessary, which can include bond from attendance at future meetings of the council for a period of 6 months.
And Madam President, for the record, all members of council are in attendance this evening. If there are individuals standing in the rear of the chamber, they are asked to be seated where seats are available at this time. Also, no applause is permitted during the course of tonight's meeting. Thank you for adhering to those guidelines.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we will proceed with review of appointments and reappointments for consideration this evening.
Members, for consideration this evening, you were provided board appointment recommendations from your July standing committee meetings. Is there a motion to approve the appointment recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
But
Yes.
hey, there was but there is discussion. Councilmember Gibson?
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to request that we continue the appointment for the Richmond Public Library Board and include that for consideration in October to allow for additional applicants to that board.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Council is now voting to continue consideration of appointments for the vacancy on the Richmond Public Library Board to the October 14th council meeting so that more applications can be accepted and reviewed. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson? Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan?
Aye.
And President Newbill?
Aye.
That motion has been approved, and now we will proceed with the approval of the remaining board appointments and reappointments. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson? Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan?
Aye.
And President Newbill?
Aye.
Those appointments have been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we'll proceed with the public comment period speakers.
The first speaker is Wanda Stallings.
Welcome, Ms. Stallings.
Good evening, Madam President, councilpersons. As you all know, my name is Wanda Stallings, and I'm from the 3rd District, and I'm here on behalf of my family and my fellow citizens. The Richmond Police Department has committed theft and malfeasance against the citizens of the Richmond city by their traffic and speed enforcement tactics. RPD has prided themselves on giving over 40,000 citations due to the speed cameras. That's over $2 million. But in my estimations, that's more money for the city of Richmond. However, how much money of this was collected illegally? I did a FOIA request with RPS, Richmond Public Schools, and the Richmond Police Department, and I found out that the lights were not working. The speed lights were not working. So everybody who got tickets in the month of May of 2025 on Chamberlain Avenue and Laburnum Avenue, their money should be given back to them. For those people who just get tickets in the mail and they see Richmond Public Police Department violation, they just go ahead and pay it. But me knowing the ins and outs of city government and the court system, I did a FOIA request. I have yet to get an appeal date. I got my ticket back in May. It is now September. There's only one police officer that handles the appeal process out of all of these tickets. So how is this helping us? And I suggest that you cease and desist all cameras and tickets until these things are done. The Department of Forest and Urban, they should cut the trees. I've gone up Chamberlain Avenue. You cannot even see the speed lights for the 25-mile-an-hour school zone. You can't see them, but yet and still those cameras are working. They should be working simultaneously. So I'm asking that you all cease and desist with these citations with these cameras until you all get the lights out, because I do have the FOIA requests, and it shows that none of the electricity was working on the cameras at Holton or Ginner Park during that time. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Stallings.
The next speaker is Melvin Jones.
Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon, Richmond City Council. My name is Melvin Jones. I reside in the 3rd District. I come to you this afternoon about a water meter issue. Back in October of 2024, had a problem with a water meter. And so I called the city utility department, and they send Henley McCoy out. And when Henley McCoy opened up the water meter, where the meter is, they had to take a thing and pump water out. So the guy told the other mechanic to give him a tool so he could tighten up on the water meter. And what happened was, he said when he tried to tighten it up, he said the gasket was blown. This is the damage that was done to my house. Over $13,000 worth of damage. Still today. And I've got a bill here that I've been paying for a water bill over $3,000. And I know I haven't used that much damn water. And they claim that they replacing all the water meters. And one Saturday I was out there in my neighborhood and I saw a utility guy go from one block to the other block. I mean, if ain't nobody gonna do their job, I mean, somebody needs to step up to the plate and do the job. This did a lot of damage to my house. And I do have respect for the city of Richmond, because somebody from utilities did call and said, Mr. Jones, once you get the damage taken care of, we will work with you on it. And you know, we got people in there like Miss I can't think of the lady's name, but we got a lot of people in the city that try to help you. And you know, you tell you, and like my own council person, I call her one day and try to get her to call me back, and I got a thing. She telling me that, well, we don't have money for your area, but you go over there off of where Holton School at, and I drive through there. They got sidewalks and everything else done. My dad is 92 years old. We got sidewalks uneven. I mean, come on now. I mean, if you're gonna make the playing field even, we got to do it right. It's always like somebody said, two people that used to sit over there, Mr. Hatcher and Mr. Delano Page. It's hard for a black man to get any type of business done in the city of Richmond. I've been
30
to banks,
seconds.
and I've been to my own credit union, try to get a home equity loan. I mean, I got the equity. I mean, all they want to do is buy your house up. I mean, be fair and do the right thing. This is the evidence right here. This is the evidence. So all I'm asking for is just a little help. $3,000, that's a lot of money.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
The next speaker is Fern Viaz Castro.
Welcome, Ms. Villas-Castro.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Fern Diaz Castro, and I'm speaking solely as myself and as a Virginia defender. Under a unified effort, multiple organizations presented all city council members a list of 9 clear demands that could support us in protecting our communities and keeping ICE out of Richmond. The only direct and official response to those demands came from Kenya Gibson through her liaison. We hope that after tonight, more of you will reach out to us and offer support through action, as each of you have immigrant community members in your district and therefore aren't dissolved of responsibility. The federal government is moving with full force through its agenda rooted in white supremacy. The National Guard has been deployed to 3 different cities, and the threat of states like Virginia being next is present. Last week, we witnessed the single largest raid in history at a construction site in Georgia, where 475 people were violently detained by several law enforcement agencies, including ICE, the FBI, and the IRS. Their documentation status varied, with some U.S. citizens still detained. And locally here in Richmond City, we're also facing similar conditions. For example, on July 30th, 20 Richmond workers were detained, mistreated, and quickly deported. One of them, Ricardo Canteras, gave testimony. I will read part of it now. It hurts me to share this part of my experience with you because it is violent and horrifying, but it is important that you know how they are treating people. There was a man about 40 years old who had diabetes. He kept begging the officers to give him his insulin, which he had with him. No one listened to him for hours. They told us to clean the cell, and as he got up, he had a seizure and fell backwards. He hit the back of his head really hard, and blood began pouring rapidly out of it. So much blood. He passed out. People were crying, even some guards. I don't know what happened to him after that. I don't know if he's dead or alive. Stopping hateful and violent people, kidnapping our community members, and putting them through such conditions should be one of your top priorities. The U.S. Supreme Court has just ruled it okay for law enforcement to racially profile people in L.A. to speed up detentions. This sets precedent for what will happen to the rest of the country. Given that immigrants come from most continents of the world, due to U.S. imperialism and its destruction in our communities. Anyone who isn't white is at risk of getting detained and disappeared. We have seen it already happening in D.C. with the homeless population and with working class Black communities. Our city has had months to prepare for this, and the fact that not one single piece of legislation has been passed against this is concerning but not surprising, considering that all of you have still failed to pass a resolution demanding the end to genocide in Palestine. We warn you that if we allowed what we allowed to happen abroad will inevitably happen here, and Israeli technology is aiding ICE through its agenda, and you weren't
30
informed
seconds.
of this last year. People shouldn't have to stand here and try to convince you to pass resolutions that will support our community. No one with a moral compass should need convincing of using their power to stand up against the evil we are witnessing. You are here under the promise that you will represent and protect the wishes of your community, so I am not here to make myself look weaker than I am or present to you the narrative that immigrants are weak or paint you a picture of pity that you can get behind. I'm here so that when the next generation asks you what you did to stop this violent white supremacist agenda, you cannot cower under the excuse that you didn't know, that it took you off guard. The threat is here, and it is your duty.
That is your time.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz Castro.
The next speaker is Kimberly Fagan.
Years in November. I now
Could
live
you
in
please
Richmond.
speak into the mic?
I now live in Richmond. I own a home. I just bought my house. Moved in December 9. Immediately, I saw speeding, racing. I live in the district, 9th district. Speeding, racing, passing in the center lane. There's 2 lanes. They just widened the road. Cars doing donuts in the middle of the road. Cars most likely trying to harass people. I'm not sure who. This was recent. 4-wheelers in the winter doing wheelies down the street. Excessive loud music, which is typical. I'm requesting either speed strips, cameras, or speed humps. It's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Buses are speeding. Fire equipment is speeding back to the station without their lights on. So if a bus is speeding, there's a real problem. Hopefully they don't have children on the bus. I request either the cameras, and also there's a preschool right across the street from me. I request something to be done because there's either harassment going on. We have a very mixed, diverse community right there, and I'm proud to be there. I just cannot appreciate, I cannot accept paying taxes for this to take place because they're almost taunting people, taunting the cops, taunting whoever to speed. I witnessed last Sunday, a week ago yesterday, 5:30, he sat in front of my house. I'm sure it's, I shouldn't say he. A car sat in front of my house, revved his engine, and sped off, squealing his tires, and he turned onto Dieter. So I live at German School Road, and Dieter is right across the street. So it's a 3-way. Please put at least some stop signs there if you can't do anything else, because it's going to deter the speeding. Something has to be done. This is I can speak for the whole city because these are residential areas. It's not a highway. They're treating it as a highway. There is no respect. There's
30 seconds.
There's 2 speed signs, one at the entrance of German School on Jenk and one on Midlothian. So I plead with you because this is a dangerous situation, especially that preschool across the street. And there's children all over this on this street. The other side is not German School, but they do have speed humps. I would appreciate some action because I do pay my taxes. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Fagan.
The next speaker is Victoria McCullough.
Welcome, Ms. McCullough.
Thank you so much. My name is Victoria McCullough, and I live in the 2nd district. If you give me one quick second, I'm going to find my notes. Good evening, council members. I'm here with my neighbors today to demand that Richmond take a clear stand against ICE and mass surveillance. First, we urge the city council to adopt a legally enforceable trust policy like Arlington County did first in 2022 and then updated this year that banned all collaboration with immigration and customs enforcement. No collaboration needs to be written into law. No detainers honored without a judicial warrant. No release of personal data or jail information to ICE. No ICE access to people in city custody, and no use of city resources for immigration enforcement. If Arlington can do it, Richmond can too. Second, please end the city's contract with Flock license plate readers. This is one easy way that we can start protecting our immigrant residents. These cameras track every driver's movements and create a mass database that can be shared across jurisdictions and with ICE, and we saw that in July of this year. Richmond police actually admitted that a federal agent from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives used its license plate reader to investigate immigration enforcement-related cases from early February to mid-June. And even though access was revoked, and even though the Richmond Police Department states that it does not enforce federal immigration law nor investigate immigration status, it shows how easily a tool like this can be used against immigrant communities. And we know that Chesterfield does actively use its own system to help ICE. This is not an isolated incident, and it puts Richmond drivers at risk for no reason. Flock also enables racial profiling, data misuse, and secret policing. And lastly, immigrant protection needs housing justice. I know that other people are here tonight to ask council to prioritize anti-rent gouging protections in our legislative agenda. We know that displacement through rent hikes and has the same effect as deportation of tearing apart families, eroding safety, eroding community, and denying dignity. Richmonders need better protections in our homes and neighborhoods, regardless of immigration status. Richmond has a choice. We can, while we still have time, follow Arlington's lead and codify a real trust policy, end contracts with surveillance company, and protect our communities from predatory landlords. Or we can continue to invest in fear and instability. Please choose dignity, housing stability, and real public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough.
The next speaker is Jana Hobbs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City
Welcome, Ms.
Council.
Hobbs.
My name is Jana Hobbs. I am a Richmond City resident. I live in 2nd District, and I'm a member of New Virginia Majority. And tonight I ask that City Council include anti-rent gouging as a priority on the state legislative agenda. My personal experience with rent gouging is that when I lived in 3rd District and lived in Bloom Apartments, in the middle of my lease agreement, I was requested to move so that the apartment could be renovated to another unit, another property that they owned by the property management. And my lease was active and the new unit wasn't comparable. It was a 1-bedroom. I had lived in a 2-bedroom. And they required that I sign a new lease, even though my lease was active and the move was at their request. And they raised my rent by almost $100. The first renewal after that, they only increased my rent by $20, but every year for the next 2, they raised it by $100. And then on the last time that I came up for renewal and I opted to move instead, they wanted to raise it by $150. And I left out in that where they also raised the flat rate for the water for our unit when we didn't have any more tenants or any more bedrooms. And ultimately, we live in a time where more protections for vulnerable communities are needed. And by adding this priority to the state legislative agenda, you're standing up for stable, safe, and inclusive communities where families are not priced out of their homes. No one lives under the constant threat of exploitation, and families can remain rooted in the neighborhoods that they love. I miss my neighborhood, but I had to move. I miss my neighbors and my friends. I miss my community, and I really want to go back. I'm starting to settle in, but I just don't, it's not the same.
And I want to live somewhere where everybody has a fair chance to thrive. I had that in District
30
3.
seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs.
The next speaker is Casey Miller.
Welcome, Ms. Miller.
Good evening, City Council. My name's Casey Miller, and I'm a resident and renter in the 7th District. I'm here asking this council to stand up for the majority of us who rent our homes. 56% of us in this city rent. And right now, we're being overwhelmed by rising rents and unchecked corporate landlord practices. Rent is increasing faster than wages can keep up. Families are being pushed out of neighborhoods they've lived in for generations. Teachers, nurses, service workers, and artists are struggling to stay in the city they love and serve. This is not a policy issue. This is about survival. Housing is a human right, which is why I'm asking this council to request the General Assembly to prioritize anti-rent gouging legislation in the upcoming session. Earlier this year, I joined others from Richmond at the General Assembly in support of anti-rent gouging legislation SB 1136, which would have allowed cities in place reasonable limits on rent increases. It failed, but even more disappointing was the silence from this council. That silence told renters like me and the 56% others that rent in this city that we are not a priority. Imagine what could change if this entire body stood together and said clearly and publicly that no one should be priced out of their homes so someone else can maximize their profit. And let us be clear, the loudest opposition to the rent protections is not coming from small landlords, it's coming from large property management companies and out-of-state investors who have no stake in this community beyond profit. When their interests are protected over the basic needs of your constituents, it becomes clear whose voices are being heard and whose are being ignored. We also need to talk about how public money is being spent. $9 million was set aside for affordable housing, and it is now being diverted, some of it to fund the Slavery Museum in my district, and most to pay for the wrongful incarceration of Marvin Grimm. I support both these causes. My concern is why the money is being expected to come from an affordable housing fund.
Ms. Miller, you cannot speak about that item because it is on the agenda. At the appropriate time, there will be a public hearing held on that item, and you can speak at that time, but not during this portion of the meeting.
Okay, this year alone, the Richmond Police Department's received $25 million to replace the 1st Precinct office due to mold and exposed wiring. Meanwhile, residents in Gilpin Court, Rudd's Mobile Home Park, Southwood, and my own district lived in those same conditions, and some of them even worse conditions. If mold is a health emergency for police officers, why is it not treated as one for the people you serve? We are not asking for handouts, we are asking for fairness. For a government that puts its people first. If this city continues to divert housing funds, then the least this council can do is ensure housing we do have is protected. Help us by demanding General Assembly to pass anti-rent gouging legislation that gives you all the power to protect us renters. Speak.
That is your time.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
The next speaker is Lisa DeLeo.
Welcome, Ms. DeLeo.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Lisa De La O. I'm a resident of the 8th District. I just need to get a little taller. And a teacher at Huguenot High School. I'm also a member of the New Virginia Majority Solidarity Committee, and I'm here to speak on supporting the trust policy. Our migrant community is under attack across the country. My students across all races and backgrounds recognize this as inequality and racial profiling. I tell my students that I am a proud child of migrants who fled a US-backed military dictatorship and came here to give me and my siblings a better life. Many of my students and their families come here out of necessity and the hopes of building a better life in Richmond. I asked my students, what can the city of Richmond do to support immigrants? Overwhelmingly, the students said that the city should protect immigrants from ICE. The city has not made clear policies that declare Richmond City will not collaborate or share any information with ICE. This leads people to feel afraid and distrust government officials and any of their statements because there are no protections for residents of Richmond. We must stand firmly and defend our most vulnerable communities from unjust attacks, whether they're from ICE, police, or greedy landlords. We must prioritize protecting affordable housing as well as immigrant communities because housing rights impact all residents. When my students come to my class, they tell me they feel safe and welcomed. They should feel that way everywhere they go. And as a city, the elected officials and residents, we all have to band together to make that a reality and create the world that we deserve that is free from surveillance and threats of family separation through incarceration and deportation. This means that we must keep ICE out of Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lau.
The next speaker is Rich Prado.
Welcome, Mr. Prado.
Hello. I'm Rich Prada. How are you? For 2.5 years, my neighbors and I have been dealing with an illegal group home that is a revolving door of convicted violent sexual offenders of minors. We have evidence that they get drunk, smoke weed, and do whatever people do with needles. The home has constant visits from police, fire, and rescue, from everything from house-wide brawls to overdoses. We were in touch with the previous city council, and they did nothing, nor did the state delegate for our district. We've been in touch with the current city council, and while at least Ms. Abu Baker has seemed to show personal interest, we've never been able to set a simple meeting. As of July 1st, these homes require certification from one of 2 different nonprofits. This house does not. Senator Van Valkenburg is leading the committee to create the state oversight for these homes. I've been to multiple meetings where I was told in person and in writing to call the police because being out of compliance is now a crime in the state of Virginia. Simultaneously, we've been in touch with the head of zoning, Mr. Vonk, who confirmed this is a recovery residence and therefore out of his hands. At the suggestion of the senator's committee, myself and a neighbor directly across the street from the house in question, she's a federal public defender, we both contacted Lieutenant Borges. The lieutenant very clearly knew what we were calling about and told me verbatim, the situation is above his pay grade. And for me, not to bother calling the captain because it's above his pay grade too, and that I should call city council. So now that we've officially had the buck passed in a full circle from city council to zoning, to the committee writing the laws, to the police, and now back to city council, I'll ask the same question I've been asking for 2.5 years. When a neighbor gets raped or killed by a drunk or high, violent, convicted sexual offender of minors that is living in a known, unprofessionally run, illegal group home, how much culpability and liability will the city have? And then finally,
30 seconds.
what will it take for someone to care enough to act on this situation before we have to find out the answer to the first question? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prado.
The last speaker is Morgan Schaefer.
Hello, my name is Morgan Hafer. I'm a member of the 1st District. I'm speaking tonight about the bike lanes. Bike lanes, simple thing, you know, they usually start with a map, which we haven't had in 13 years with $200 million and 15 bike planners. Washington, D.C. started their bike lane plans in 2004 with 3 planners. In 10 years, not $200 million, not 13 years with no map, 10 years, 66 miles of bike lanes that are safe, effective, draw tourists to the city, and keep traffic flowing in and out of the city into the state of Virginia and the state of Maryland. All the while, we have bike laners who can't even find the 3 feet bike lane sign, bike law sign created by the United States Department of Transportation specifically for what? Bike lane enforcement, people. So bike lane people who don't ride bikes, don't live in our city, make 53% above the national average and spent 13 years on a $200 million for bike lanes that don't have any maps, no connectivity, no safety. And our city and county watched people die like an 11-year-old child 3 weeks ago. Because why? Because the bike race we had 13 years ago, we decided to let former administration officials and current DPW officials run our city like a trap house for bike sabotage, while all the while they collect large 53% above the national average for salaries. And when the news, the national news, spotlights you people for being seeing this, yeah, you're going to be out of a job, and I'll be running the bike lane system.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Madam President, that concludes the list of public comment period speakers for this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you to all of the speakers who came forward. And there will be follow-up. Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's move on to review amendments to tonight.
Madam President, the amendments to tonight's agenda are as follows. Item 2, ordinance 2025-014 will be continued to the Tuesday, October 14th council meeting. Item 3, ordinance 2025-025, and item 4, ordinance 2025-032, both will be continued to the Monday, September 22nd council meeting. Item 5, ordinance 2025-046 is to be amended later this evening and then continued to the Monday, September 22nd council meeting. Item 6, ordinance 2025-079. Item 8, ordinance 2025-081. Item 9, ordinance 2025-113. Item 11, ordinance 2025-148. Item 12, ordinance 2025-150, and item 21, ordinance 2025-173, all will be continued to the Monday, September 22nd council meeting. Item 20, and lastly, item number 22, ordinance 2025-174 will be continued to the Tuesday, October 14th council meeting. Madam President, those are all the amendments to tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second. Council is now voting on this evening's agenda amendments as presented. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones? Aye. Ms. Robertson? Aye. Ms. Lynch? Aye. Ms. Trammell? Aye. Ms. Abubakar? Aye. Vice President Jordan? Aye. And President Newbill?
Aye.
The amended agenda is before you.
Madam President, the consent agenda consists of the following items. Item 1, ordinance 2024-312. Item 7, ordinance 2025-080. Item 10, ordinance 2025-136. Items 13 through 20, ordinance 2025-155. Correction. Item 13, ordinance 2025-155. Items 14 through 20, 2025-166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, 172. Items 23 through 30, ordinance 2025-175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, 181, 182, and item 31, ordinance and resolution 2025-R020. Those are the items on tonight's consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll proceed with the public hearing on the consent agenda items. Are there persons present wishing to speak in opposition to any of the items on the consent agenda? If you would please come forward.
Good evening, council members. My name is Tyrese Johnson. I come today in opposition of Ordinance 2025-180 and respectfully request that the council continue consideration of the ordinance related to the surplus and conveyance of city-owned property at 8790 Strath Road in Henrico County. This property, which is nearly 9/10 of an acre, is currently proposed to be conveyed for $6,500. I believe this amount is underbid and undervalued for that parcel in question. As such, I simply ask for the opposition and a fair chance, a fair chance to submit a higher offer. Doing so would ensure that the city of Richmond realizes greater revenue from the transaction and revenue that directly impacts or benefits its residents. I would also like to highlight that City Council ordinances 2017-169 and 2017-170 were adopted to guarantee fairness and transparency in the sale of city-owned properties. Specifically, Ordinance 169 affirms the importance of publishing surplus properties and engaging in a competitive process prior to the acceptance of an unsolicited offer. In this case, because the city does not publish non-Richmond property addresses in the biannual real estate list, the process may not have provided full opportunity for fair and open competition. I respectfully urge this body to continue the legislation to allow for a process, one that honors both the spirit and the letter of the ordinances previously enacted, ensuring a fair and competitive bidding process is not only in the best interest of fairness, it is the best interest of the city's financial health. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other persons desirous of speaking in opposition to any consent agenda items? Yes.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I am from
Ma'am, can you pull the mic down? Thank you.
short people, right? I am from the 7th District. My issues with the ordinances and the requests for special use permits go across the city. I have had a chance to look at the Richmond 300 plan with the overall request to change the dimensions of a lot to 25 feet. I know there is a crisis in housing, but as if you've heard before, there's a crisis in who's buying these properties and who's creating these properties. Are they individuals who are going to be living there who own the property? Or are they corporations who own it and they're renting? I can tell you in the one that I will speak on the 22nd, there are corporations who are building houses to rent as a corporation. And I can tell you that each of these, look at them closely, and if these are corporations that are buying it, and corporations that will own it, and corporations that will rent it, you are not creating community. And someone spoke before me who was so sad. And she said, I want my community back. And as you consider each of these special permits, consider, are you creating community for this community? Are you destroying the community by raising the rents, raising the property values for the people who live there and live there on a fixed income, who can't afford the rents as they are? But because the rents are going up.
Ma'am, can you please keep your comments relative to specific items on the consent agenda?
Every item on here that you're considering is dividing property by special use permit. Shall I name them all? I think you did earlier. So every time you do that, every time you go to a special permit that allows 3 where there was 1 or where there was 2, where you allow a corporation to buy the property and rent
30
back,
seconds.
you're not creating community, and you're creating the very problems that several people before me talked about. Taking away our communities, putting it in corporate hands, and feeding the rich. People over profits should be your one goal. Creating community, not corporate ownership in our city.
Ma'am, can you please state your name for the record?
Linda J. Woods.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Woods.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the City Council. My name is Omar Kenyatta. I reside in the 9th District. My speech, my comments really is in the spirit of previous speakers who have spoken as it relates to the sustainability issues that the city is confronted with as it relates to low income and working class people. It's really not your fault. It's the Department of Planning 10, 15, 20 years ago who used a formula of unsustainability planning. Now here we are confronted with a most serious human issue. That is the universal acceptance of housing. What kind of ethics, framework, or morality is going into planning that will leave people either homeless or near homeless status?
Mr. Kenyatta, are you speaking to specific items on the consent
I'm speaking to the
agenda?
spirit, if you allow me to complete my statements. Would you allow me to complete my statements before you interrupt me?
Please just make sure they're relevant to the items on the
Everything I'm
consent
saying
agenda.
is relevant because it's a public space.
Okay, you may
Everything is
proceed with your
relevant in the
comments.
democracy, everything is relevant in public space and it's civic engagement. Now, I
Mr.
don't know,
Kenyatta, if you would
okay,
proceed,
would you allow me to
please.
complete my statements, please?
Yes, please.
As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, that my comments is in the spirit of those who spoke before me around this human crisis that Richmond experiences as it relates to access to the most decent expression of our humanity. That is a house, a home where children and families can thrive. I don't have a clue as to what is going on in terms of political subsidization that housing will become an issue. You are a different generation. I would think you value systems as it relates to engagement to public in short and long-term planning, that sustainability for all people will be a part of what constitutes urban living. If everything is going to be subject to the private sector, then you're ushering in a total dismantling of respect for capitalism. I mean, you are
30
changing the
seconds.
perception in terms of how the economy should work for all. There's no reason that we have young people who are homeless, and you know that. And you know that people are either homeless or near homeless, and there's no value system,
Mr.
no ethical
Kenyatta.
framework for the policy that's generated in regards to the well-being and quality of life issues for human beings.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyatta. Are there persons present desirous of speaking in favor of any of the, I'm sorry, you want in opposition to an item on the consent agenda, ma'am?
I'm here to speak on item number 26, the special use property known as 400 North Robinson Street for the purpose of a 3-story mixed-use building upon certain terms and conditions. I am Jennifer Beausoleil. I reside at 2524 Stewart Avenue, directly across the street from said property. And I'm in opposition to that unit. So 12 units for housing are supposed to go in there, which will be at least 12 cars. I'm thinking more like 24 cars. When one block west of that property, there is a 36-unit apartment building that's being renovated right now. That I'm sure has at least 36, if not 72 cars that all need parking. Within a block radius of where that Starbucks is, are 5 restaurants. Within another couple blocks, there are 7 or 8 restaurants. And then we have VMFA and the History Museum, Virginia History Museum, that runs special events as well. Parking is at a premium for all of us. And I'm sure that this is not going to be rent-controlled housing for people who really need it, which is a huge problem. So I just wanted to say that I don't think that this is a good idea for anyone, except for city coffers, and for the amount of taxes that we pay, to not be able to park right in front or within blocks of our dwellings is ridiculous. And the way that people are being priced out for what amount to be luxury apartments around that area is despicable. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there others present desirous of speaking in opposition to any items on the consent agenda at this time? And if there are others, if you will please line up so that I can get a sense of how many more there are. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Good evening again. So I'd like to speak in opposition of all of the special use permits, or however the phrase is stated. We don't need any more density in the city, especially not in District 2. There's plenty of housing already on the book. There's plenty of vacancies, but we really need to protect the people that already reside there. We need to create accountability in the city inspector's office so that these properties are properly maintained and, if needed to be, updated in order to create a situation where there is habitable living, where there isn't rodent infestations like I live in District 2, and roach infestations where I live in District 2 is ridiculous for the money that we pay. And I had the same problems before I moved. It's absurd that we can't do that before we talk about creating higher density, which is just going to spread these infestation problems around. It's absurd to think that we want to create more density before we create the protections for the people that already reside there. I just can't believe it's laughable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before you start, just one second. Are there any other persons present desirous of speaking in opposition to any item on the consent agenda? If you will come forward and line up behind this young lady. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good evening. My name is Anna Makowitz, and I'd also like to speak in opposition to any luxury apartment complex that would be built. I can't specify from the agenda, but I think that upper middle class and wealthy people have enough options, and I don't think that we can prioritize giving them more options. So I would urge the council to take action that would prioritize actually affordable housing for people who need it. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will ask if there are any persons desirous of coming forward to speak in favor of any items on the consent agenda. If you would line up and be prepared to speak.
I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is
Good evening.
Janice Allen. I have the distinct pleasure of being the president of the Historic Jacksonville Association. It's kind of hard for me to stand in support of following some of that because a lot of that we agree with. Density and all those things, we have the same kind of concern. So because I'm up here about to support something, don't think we don't hear you. Okay? Peace? Okay. I want to talk about one specific item on the agenda, and that is, I think it is 2025-155 about the Ronald McDonald House. And I don't want everything caught up in the conversation we've heard before because not all of the things on the consent agenda are the same. This particular one, put forth by the Ronald McDonald House Foundation, is one that the community is very welcoming of. We look forward to this organization coming into our community and taking a good home and becoming a neighbor on that spot at Belvedere and Lee. The actual CUP calls for allowing lodging so that they can build this Ronald McDonald House, which is a place where families can come when their children are in need of pediatric medical care. So it allows the family to come and stay with the kid and, have some family life and be in the community. We have worked very closely with the Ronald McDonald House Foundation. They have been exemplary development partners. They've come to the community in every capacity to explain what they're doing. So with that and with their mission, we'd like to really ask you to support this particular CUP. We see what they're doing as a symbol of compassion and caring, and that's very much in line with the community that we are. Some of the other things, we'll talk about at other times, but I want to stay specific to this specific CUP and say that the Jackson Ward community is in full support of it and ask that you all please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Distinguished members of council, you wanted us to speak in support of items. I'm John Zugner. I'm an urban planner and environmentalist. Lived in the city, been planning for 40 years. I'd like to speak on item 29. It's the sale of 2 surplus properties to a development company, Belmont Investments LLC. We think that they are trying to consolidate large parcel property on Belmont Road. I say large, it's only 11 acres. They have plans to put residential development in there. I understand apartments and townhouses. They also plan to put in commercial property or commercial space, offices, a daycare, and other community amenities. We support the sale of this property. We think it's a very interesting proposal. It is on transit lines, so they're looking at daycare and groceries and things that are needed for people who work. They are planning to, it looks like a very good proposal, and they have offered to work with the community. I want to talk about the protection of the community just a little bit. South Belmont Road heads down the road towards Pocashaw Creek. 2 of the owners who live down at the bottom of that street have put conservation easements forever and ever on their parcels. Right across the street from them is Murchis Mill, an 1840s mill that's on the state landmarks, and they are interested in putting conservation easements on their property, and that would provide a blue greenway all the way from the bottom of South Belmont through under the interstate over to Sutton Park, which would be a huge recreation amenity. The developers are interested in other amenities on the property, more trees, a bikeway that runs along there, bike parking. They would probably be interested in more recharging things for electric vehicles. And in a way, it could be a very green community. They could even be a zero impact community with the right encouragement, and we support that very strongly instead. I appreciate your time and attention tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name's Maddie Call. I came with that gentleman right there. I am a resident of South Belmont Road. I grew up there. I have one of the properties with a conservation easement, and I'm coming up to speak in support of having this new development be as green as possible and to be careful about water and trees and traffic. And having said that, hope you have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no others desirous of speaking in favor of any items on the consent agenda, the public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to council for discussion. Councilman Breton.
I would like to know more about item number 28, ordinance 2025-180, which is the sale of the property in Henrico. I know that generally when something's in the city, we usually count on the local council representative to be eyes on it to make sure that it's got enough scrutiny. And so given this one's out in Henrico, I'd like to know if anyone can speak to the process, the transparency, and whether or not we're confident that we want to go through with that sale or if it needs potentially more time or continuance.
Sorry, I couldn't see the CAO over there. Mr. Donald, you and or staff are desirous of speaking to the process that was utilized in this instance?
Good evening, Madam President. Sharon Ebert, DCAO for Planning and Economic Development. With regards to your question, you are correct. This is in Henrico County. It is a small parcel of land that the Department of Utilities bought many, many years ago, thinking that they needed it. It is adjacent to some high power lines. And it was an unsolicited offer that we received and have been asked to bring before you for consideration. The assessed value, I believe, is a little less than what the adjacent homeowner has offered. And due to its relationship to that property, they would like to use it as a side yard. And as I mentioned, it's next to high-powered lines on the other side.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. Any other questions or comments at this time?
Well, I'm
sorry, Mr. Breton.
I would suggest that we may want to continue this because, our, property deserves to have a fair shake at getting the best market price. So I wonder if people would be amenable to continuing this for a little further consideration.
I'm not understanding why we would continue. What Ms. Ebert has shared that this is the offer was more than if I heard you correctly, more than the assessed value. So it wasn't, what are we?
Oh, well, I mean, for example, a gentleman did suggest that there might be opportunities for other bids that are higher. And so just because something's higher than assessment doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best opportunity for the city.
Ms. Ebert, would you, if you don't mind, expand on the process just so we can provide clarification in terms of how we vet even properties that we have some oversight and ownership of, but not in the city?
Our city code allows for us to receive unsolicited offers. Clearly, it's up to the council to decide whether you want to accept them or not. If I hear you correctly, Councilman Britton, you would prefer perhaps to have the city put the property out to bid. That is allowed under the city code if that's the council's will. So there's a number of things you could do. We haven't in the past. I can give you one precedent from a few years ago. A homeowner in the 4th District near Reedy Creek had a similar property that was adjacent to their property. They came before us. I think they offered $8,000 for that particular lot, asking for it to be allowed to allow them to continue to use it as sort of a side yard and a garden, and council decided that was an appropriate use too. But it truly is the will of the council.
Thank you. Councilmember Abelbacher.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to support Councilmember Breton's line of questioning around us not putting this up for a public bid. We just heard from numerous people who are talking about the high value of real estate in the city and, quite frankly, in our surrounding counties. And I'm sure that we will be having a very public debate in just a few months about how the city is looking for every dollar it can find. I think it would be remiss of us to not put this up for public bid. And I mean, the worst that can happen is that this person who has put an unsolicited offer, they pay a little bit more than they were going to from this unsolicited offer. But I feel as if it is a bad use of our city resources not to try to get what we can get out of this property. I would also say that given that the ordinance right below it in the 8th district is less than the acreage for this one, which is almost 9/10 of an acre, which is a lot in the city of Richmond or in Henrico for that matter. And that one is going for $187,000. It seems difficult to have those two juxtaposed next to one another. So I think that's the best thing for the city to do is to put it out to public bid.
Just one more. I'll come back. Just another question. Ms. Ebert? I wanted to be clear, you said this was less than the assessed value?
Yes, I believe Henrico County has it assessed somewhere around $5,400-$5,500.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a little bit more than what the assessed value was.
Well, we all know that
Okay.
assessed value and fair market value are two different things sometimes.
That is true.
Okay. So at this point, and is there a motion of some sort? Is that what I'm hearing? And I want to be clear that as we move forward with similar instances, that we are holding everyone to the same set of criteria. Okay, so if we are saying there not the opportunity for unsolicited without then I want to make sure we're being consistent. Mr. Breton, you're looking like you want.
Yeah, well, I suppose, well, the one thing that I would be sure of is I would like to continue this particular sale, whether the precise mechanism that we use to deal with it, I'm not, as clear on, but I would ask that we continue this particular sale off the consent agenda and continue it.
For how long would you like to continue that item?
I don't know. 2 weeks should be fine.
Thank you. If we could look.
Or could we ask what Ms. Ebert would say that the process would be for a fair market?
Yes, I would like to. Ms. Ebert, any additional comment relative to time frame? We're looking at the next council session is what's been stated, but based on the processes for making this open for consideration, what kind of timing would you be looking at?
To put it out to bid, madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Probably wouldn't take us very long to put out a notice for solicitation of bids for the property. Could not do it within the next 2 weeks, that's for sure. But if you wanted consideration, I would say, if you gave us 60 days, we could put it out to bid in that time and receive bids for the property.
So, Madam Clerk, if we would look at time so we can get a date here.
Yes, the date would be November 10th if it's a 60-day continuance.
And that would be the time frame. Thank you.
Ms. Opperbacher, will you second Mr. Breton's motion to continue this item, please?
I surely will. I second.
Motion to continue item 28, 2025, 180 to the Monday, November 10th formal council meeting. Mr. Breton?
This is to continue it? Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
No.
Ms. Lynch?
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, can you repeat that? Okay.
Abstain.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
You said aye. Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan?
Aye.
President Newbill?
No.
That motion has been approved.
And thank you. I really do want to come back to our process for disposing of property. I'm wanting to make sure we're going to be consistent in what we are asking of folks who make offers now. And so I'll be looking within that time frame to look at what our process is and making sure that we are being consistent. We're not doing one-offs, that if we're asking this of, in this instance, that we're doing that with all the instances. So thank you.
Council is voting on tonight's consent agenda as stated. Mr. Britton?
With the exception of that
Wait,
item.
I'm sorry. I didn't see the light. Ms. Gibson.
I just wanted to speak before the vote, if that was okay. I'm sorry. I did raise my button. I just wanted to, on closing the loop on our vote and the discussion of the conveyance of city-owned real estate, I would definitely like to explore revising our policy to make putting these up for bid as standard practice across the board. I think if we codify the way that this works, that would ensure that it is the same process across the board, and at the same time ensure that we are getting fair market value for the range of properties. I had expressed some thoughts about all of the property that we were going to surplus, and I do want to make sure that all of those property sales are handled in a consistent manner. So I would certainly support that. I also wanted to highlight, I mean, we had a number of folks speaking in public comment. I think broadly, I mean, there's just a lot of SUPs that are on the agenda. And I think that between people feeling all of the way that we're feeling the change happening in this city, I think it's people are feeling a way about it across the board, and I just wanted to speak to that. I think I really appreciated the comment regarding just the overall interest of corporate interests that are happening in the housing market, and I think it's imperative that we consider that. I think we are officially at the point where we can say that density or that building more housing is going to address the housing crisis, because when we have these corporate interests in the industry, the math, it just doesn't work that way. The economics are no longer the same. And anyone who's looked at their property tax bill, if you're a homeowner, you're feeling the impact of corporate development in the city. Renters are feeling it. Mom and pop landlords are feeling it as well. And I would suggest or encourage all of us, as we're talking about these, in my opinion, generally not so attractive buildings that are going up. I would caution us from, we call them luxury apartments, and I get it, right? Because it's in contrast to affordable housing, right? But the thing that's insane about it is that they're not luxury. The finishes are not luxurious. The interiors are not luxurious. They're cookie cutter. They're made as cheap as possible. And so we have to figure out some ways, and I look to the group of advocates to consider what are the ways that we can look at developing policy to address what's happening, because as a body, we look at these things individually. We do what we can to address those that are in our districts to improve them. But I will tell you, the pressures from the development community is intense. And if you're in a civic association that's next to them, I mean, it's a lot. And so I think, while yes, each of these individual projects we can look at, we can make as better as possible, but we need policy to ensure that when we're building housing, we're building quality housing, and we can ensure that that we're able to stay here. Because the way that the system's working now is that corporate interests are pushing us out. And I appreciate that, and I'm eager to work with us to find out solutions to change that.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. Councilwoman Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to weigh in on a little bit of the city-owned surplus properties and the policy that's being requested as it relates to the uniformity of putting it out for bid. As we think through that process of doing such, I would like for the administration to work with us in doing an analysis of the opportunity that the city has with our surplus properties and the desperate need for land to be able to afford land in order to afford affordable housing. And so when we take into consideration putting out for bid with the idea to put it out to get the greatest bid that we value that we can get, in one way we are saying we want to build more housing at a certain level based on the value, the increased sale price of our own surplus land. So I would also like for that policy to take into consideration what the city would need to do first to determine whether or not land that we own, that we consider as surplus, is surplused for the sake of affordable housing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Before we move forward, I have a question then about ordinance number 29 and whether or not what kind of process we utilize there. Is that you, Ms. Ebert?
The Belmont Avenue parcels were surplused by council earlier, and we did then receive an unsolicited offer from the developer who has put together land assemblage. These three small parcels or two small parcels would allow for the entire area to be developed. And I think there was someone who spoke eloquently during public comment supporting the project. It is my understanding, a residential and retail projects that is proposed for that part of the district, and it is being developed, I think, in a sustainable way. But it was an unsolicited offer that we received.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. Well, before you go back, as we've just dealt with a situation where we had an unsolicited bid and there was a question whether the assessed value and then the any information relative to assessed versus market,
I do not know off the top of my head what the assessed value is for the three parcels. I'd have to get back to you, or the two parcels. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know off the top of my head. I can look it up for you and get back to you quickly, but I would need to look it up.
Well, let me just say, for me, if we're going to be consistent in terms of our process, if this is unsolicited and we're saying it should be open, then this would raise a concern not to have that information.
Understood.
So I would ask that we, you said you'll have the information?
I can check it quickly.
Okay.
Oh, would you? There's the attorney on behalf of the developer who apparently has that information at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Conrad. Great to see you.
Mr. Cronin.
Excuse me, Cronenthal. Mr. Conrad is walking across the back there. So I saw him going in.
Madam President, members of council, my name is Mark Cronenthal, and I represent Cameron Bajwa, who's the principal of the owner of the surrounding 11 acres. We actually learned about this process because it was about these properties because it was advertised by the city as part of its surplusing. So Cameron has been interested and had purchased these properties, the surrounding properties already. And he learned about the availability of these properties and made his offer based on the listing of these properties as part of the city's existing surplus list that was on the website and in your ordinances earlier this year. The offer was made based on, again, the presence on the surplus list at the time of the offer, and this has been sitting for a couple months. At the time of the offer was the then assessed value. So I can tell you at the time of the offer, it was the assessed value. I know assessments went out over the last week, so I don't know if it's consistent with the assessed value as of today.
Thank
Happy
you.
to answer any other questions.
Thank you. So it sounds as if this city surplus property was listed
Yes, ma'am.
on public site
Yes, ma'am.
and the opportunity. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilwoman Trammell?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted you to know that Mark could probably answer that question. And I wish we had looked at all of this before the meeting because, I mean, I'm getting some other papers that, you know, I just wish we had looked at this earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. That certainly answered my question, which makes this a different scenario than the prior. So thank you, Ms. Ebert, and thank you, Mr. Cronenthal and Dr. Conrad in the back there. Councilwoman Robertson? Oh. At this point, if there are no further discussion items, we'll proceed, Madam Clerk, to call the question.
Council is voting on tonight's consent agenda as stated, with the exception of item 28, ordinance 2025-180. Mr. Britton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye. The exception of opposition to the recommendation to continue agenda item number 28.
Okay. Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan?
Aye.
President Newbill?
I,
Those-
with the same concerns raised relative to item number 28 in terms of how we move forward with handling properties similarly. So,
Thank you. Those papers have been adopted with the exception of item 28, ordinance 2025-180.
thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on to the regular agenda.
Madam President, the regular agenda item for consideration this evening is item number 32, ordinance number 2025-188, to amend the FY26 special fund budget by transferring $5.8 million from the delinquent tax sales special fund and to amend the FY26 general fund budget by one, creating a new line item in the outside agencies and central appropriations agency called restitution payments, and two, appropriating such transferred funds to such a new line item for the purpose of providing funding for a restitution payment pursuant to Virginia Code Section 8.01-195.13. That paper is before council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the administration's representative like to provide any comment prior to moving to public hearing? CAO Donald?
Good evening to members
Good
of the
evening.
council. Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you tonight and hopefully looking to close and resolve this matter. I think we've provided quite a bit of information that I hope has been helpful to the council for you to be able to make your decision this evening. We've looked at a variety of funding sources and also uncovered some new opportunities to be able to invest differently in some of your major priorities. And so I think from the administration's perspective, I think we've done a couple of things to get us here tonight. Number one, we have identified a funding source that is lawful and appropriate to be able to resolve this matter that has come out of state legislation. And then on the second hand, I think in a completely separate matter, we've been able to identify some additional resources that can be invested in affordable housing, as well as the need to explore how we invest in one of your top priorities moving forward. And so with that, I think we're prepared this evening, or at least from the administration's point of view, to move forward on this matter. And if there are any questions that you have, I'd be more than willing to answer them. But I think we provided a wealth of information through memos, letters, and other things that have brought us here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. You will remain with us for comment after public hearing, possibly, or inquiry.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Thank
sitting
you.
right there.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. With that, we will now proceed to hold a public hearing on this ordinance. All of those desirous of speaking in opposition to this paper, if you would please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Hardney Scott, and I am the City of Richmond and the Virginia State Conference NAACP Housing Chair. Madam President, distinguished council, as you prepare to vote on the City of Richmond's $5.8 million restitution payment to Mr. Grimm, I stand to express both support for his justice but concern about the proposed funding source. There is no question what happened to Mr. Grimm was a travesty of justice. However, I am concerned that the city has both a legal and ethical responsibility to him as well as to the citizens that prior to this incident was brought forward. We must consider the broader impact of how transferring these funds are allocated. The current proposal to use proceeds from the sale of tax delinquent properties effectively diverts resources that many have long advocated be dedicated to true affordable housing development. Richmond County's continues to face a housing crisis with way too many families burdened by rising rents, displacement, rent gouging, and limited access to truly obtainable and sustainable housing. In this case, we do not believe the city should throw the baby out with the bathwater by addressing one injustice while simultaneously undermining the city's commitment to solving another. Both the justice for Mr. Grimm and affordable housing for Richmond's residents should be your urgent priority. I am respectfully urging council to ensure Mr. Grimm receives his rightful restitution without delay, but identify an alternative funding source that does not undercut the city's affordable housing effort. The moment is an opportunity for Richmond to demonstrate that justice and equity are not competing values, but parallel commitments. The city can and must honor its obligation to Mr. Grimm, we understand, but you also have an obligation to protect the resources for those that desperately need to be addressed in this housing contrast. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Hardney Scott.
Hello, City Council again. It's Casey Miller, resident of the 7th District. I just want to reiterate back to a point I was making earlier, but was in more so the understanding of housing altogether. My concern specifically with this, again, I bring up that I fully and vehemently support that this man get the restitution he's so graciously deserved. My problem with it is how we're funding this. This is the Affordable Housing Fund that, from my understandings, members might not have even have known that this was needed when we were initially requesting $9 million to potentially be redistributed to the Family Crisis Fund. What I want to point out is this fiscal year, the Richmond Police Department, who helped with wrongfully convicting this man, received $25 million to replace their first precinct office due to alleged mold and exposed wiring. They also received an extra $6 million to ensure that they would get raises, so that way their raises would make sure that their salary was 2% higher on market value. I don't know where you've ever worked where somebody gets a raise for doing injustice and doing wrong things. So I just think that we should be considering the funding elsewhere, like the Richmond Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I appreciate your time. I am a former defense attorney. My heart and soul is protecting people who cannot afford good services, good legal services. But I have to tell you that I agree with the previous two speakers. While it was a heinous injustice that has happened to many in this city, because for 35 years, I have practiced as a defense attorney in Richmond and in Henrico and Chesterfield, and have found it abounding with police who lie and misrepresent facts against my clients. We don't have enough funds to support legal aid and to support the attorneys who are court people. We didn't even know, I understand, that we had $9 million until this came up, and it was found so that we could pay this gentleman for that injustice. I'm going to suggest two things to this council. One, you do have to balance the injustice in our housing, our homeless, and the skyrocketing amount of corporate housing that's raising and raising and raising the rents and causing homelessness. And you have to come to terms with the fact that the police are not always right. And they are at times corrupt. I'm not saying that all police are, and by God, when you're in trouble, you call them. And I call them. But I can tell you that until we reform our justice system too, many innocent people will continue, and this city will be found liable. And I too suggest that the police maybe should take a little from their budgets.
Thank you. Everyone desires of speaking in opposition to the paper. If you would please queue up. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've been told I'm speaking in opposition. My name is Regina Largent, and I've lived in the city of Richmond for 20 years, more than 20 years. I currently live in the 4th District. And our community is at a crisis. First, the majority of Richmond renters cannot afford their monthly rent, as we've heard. Second, among low-income renters, which is our focus at risk, there's a shortage of 16,000 units needed today. We've had an ordinance on the books to address this crisis, but that ordinance has been ignored. Given the crisis, this is not okay. The City Council developed a plan to start to address this crisis, but the follow-up through was lacking. We, the taxpayers and citizens of Richmond, demand more from our leaders. I have seen the problem close up. My nephew, Patrick, who works full-time, does not make enough money to afford to house himself, his 2 preteen boys, and his 70-year-old mother who cares for the boys since he's a single parent. She cares for him while he works. Patrick and his family had been renting hotel rooms by the week when he could afford them. In the end, he was living in his truck before he moved in with me, with his family. This family of 4 has been living in my 2-person, small, now crowded house for 3 years while they continue to look for something they can afford. But they are lucky. Most people do not have a family member or a friend who can provide a safety net for a family of 4. More and more crowded living like this is becoming commonplace in Richmond because of the severe lack of affordable housing, even for people working full-time jobs. As a community, we need to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of council. Mrs. Large, our previous speaker, and myself are not in opposition to compensating and doing restorative justice to Mr. Grimm. We are in support of him getting that compensation. What we are not in support of is using it from the delinquent tax sale fund. Those monies were supposed to go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. For the last 10 years, probably, maybe even more, I and other members of RISK, stands for Richmond, is involved to strengthen our communities, have stood before this board and pleaded with the city to make significant investments in affordable housing. And I appreciate Councilwoman Robertson's long-term efforts to create. She helped create the Affordable Housing Trust Fund many, many years ago. And for years, RISK has pushed for that trust fund so that we could ensure that those who make 30% of the average median income in our community can actually live in this city. This meant that the trust fund needed tens of millions of dollars every year for affordable housing. So the laws were put in place, ordinances were put in place to make sure there was a dedicated stream of revenue to support that Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but those laws were not obeyed. So what is before you is a proposal to transfer $5.8 million from that dedicated reserve, that money that was supposed to go to Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Like I said earlier, we're not opposed to, or matter of fact, I'm hypersensitive to someone being wrongfully convicted as a Black man and as clergy. So we want Mr. Place to that was to go to Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Mr. Grimm was wrongfully convicted, and that's a police and prosecutor issue. Their funds should take the burden of making sure that injustice is right. The struggling people of our community, the poor people that need affordable housing, should not have to repair the justice that was injustice, that was placed on Mr. Grimm. And so we understand that there are plans to transfer $2 million from that fund, the rest of that fund, to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And we're thankful that Councilperson Robertson alerted us to what was going on and making sure that we could speak about it. And so we want, but there's more money needs to be put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so we hope for tonight is that if you do vote to remove it from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, that reserve fund, that you would find the money that is needed that was taken out of that fund for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund this year. And that's what we're hoping for. So we're not in opposition to Mr. Grimm being compensated. We are in opposition to
30 seconds.
The money coming out of the delinquent tax sale fund, that money that by law, the previous administration, the previous councils did not ensure went into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Sir, can you please state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Ralph Hodge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alex Krieger. I'm a Presbyterian pastor and a member of RISK. And as you've heard many times, we as RISK have been crying out for the last several years for our mayor and you all as city council to follow the law and fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. These funds for Mr. Grimm that we definitely want compensated are coming from Part B of that ordinance that has meant all of it to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It isn't a new thing, it's meant for that. So we wanted all of it. We are glad that in conversation, especially with Councilmember Robertson, that we've heard a strong commitment for $2 million going into that, to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And we very much push you all to keep our mayor or administration on that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is funded, the remaining $2 million from this. That's just the Part B ordinance of it. There's also a Part A that's actually a much bigger part of the ordinance, and it hasn't been followed either by our city. Part A requires that our Director of Finance put all expiring tax abatements in a special reserve, a lockbox. It's not if you feel like it, it's a shall. And then you, as members of Richmond City Council, have the power to transfer those funds from the lockbox to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The trust fund's the only place these funds can legally go. But as far as we know, the Director of Finance has never transferred the money to the lockbox. This law was passed in January 2021. That's 4.5 years ago. 4.5 years of our city disobeying the law. And this is a law that is here to help our city's biggest crisis, affordable housing. I think that's what every city elected leader has said. Affordable housing is our biggest crisis. And that Affordable Housing Trust Fund is something we as RISK are going to keep speaking about, being kind of annoying and talking about, because it is the best tool we have. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the only tool that helps those who are 30% AMI or below in our city. And right now, that's our biggest group who are in need of housing. It's the group that needs housing the most as well. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is also the tool that has citizen oversight. It's made up of part of the city and with citizens, and to make sure our city is responsible to the people. We are here as RISC.
30 seconds.
Yep. We are here as RISC, ready to support Councilmember Robertson on negotiations with the city, with the mayor, with the plan that we will find a dedicated stream that might need the ordinance redone, but that will be a dedicated stream to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We've met with Council members Gibson and Lynch, and we know they too are ready to get this done. And we know the rest of you have campaigned on the need for affordable housing. And this is your chance to make good.
Thank you. Are there any other persons desirous of speaking in opposition? Seeing none, let's proceed to those desirous of speaking in favor of this particular ordinance. You would come forward. Okay. Seeing none at this time, the public hearing is closed. Bring it back to the body for discussion. Councilwoman Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you that have come down to speak about housing in the city of Richmond, not only directly to this paper, but in other concerns that we have as it relates to the many challenges that we face as it relates to providing housing at a cost that, regardless what your income is, that you're not putting out more than 30% of your income for decent, safe housing. And our problem in the city, someone said we need 16,000. Those numbers are probably a little dated, because every year that we go, that we are not developing and maintaining the level of affordable housing in the city, those numbers increase. I appreciate all of your comments this evening. They are very, very factual, and they need to be said. And they need to be said over and over and over again. The city housing crisis is not the revenues that we are investing, and we can give you a report on what has been put in housing development. You're absolutely correct as it relates to these two ordinances. I want to share with you what has happened since the last time we met. I've met with the administration. I've met with our new Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Donald. I've met with representatives from the mayor's office. And this is the promise that you will help make sure that we keep. And I know that's difficult to say, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation about the ordinances that were passed several years ago that never got to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I know I'm saying a lot that is troubling within my own spirit. I believe that the discussion that we have had and the ordinances that you will see coming before us again will guarantee, without any potential escape clause in there, that will be able to be used to allow any of the roll-off tax abatement dollars to go anywhere else except to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And we have made it very clear that we have information from our financial advisors as to what that dollar amount is. And we are doing additional work to verify that, to make sure that is correct. And the administration has made a commitment that the ordinance that will come before us for the roll-off abatement, those funds will not be less than what we already know that they are. And we'll accept more, but they're absolutely not going to be any less that we accept as an ordinance. And what I'm saying to you is that the ordinance that has not been enforced will be put in force, and that those funds will be put in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Secondly, I don't like the idea. I would prefer that there was another source of revenue in the tax delinquent account, sales account. But I do believe and we all agree, what has happened to Mr. Grimm and what has happened to his family, no one is in opposition to us doing what is right, doing the best that we can as to what is right. And that's not making it right, but acknowledging and putting forth an effort to try to make it right for him and his family. Never would I be in opposition to that. I don't like the idea. I don't support the idea of the 5.8, the source that it was identified for prior to. However, I have worked with the administration on a continual basis to try to identify another reliable source of revenue, and I'm allowing them to convince me that the new ordinances that we are putting in place will be recovery of the revenues that should have and will be put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I'm asking a big favor of you, and I've asked a big favor of you. I'm going to vote to support this because I'm going to give the administration, this administration, an opportunity to know that we are trusting them to do exactly what they have promised to do. And we've promised that all of this will be taken care of within 30 days. People say trust and verify. I get you. So we're going to trust, and we have a short window of opportunity for it to be verified. And I am confident that the Avula administration is going to do what is right, and that the ordinance that you will see coming forward will establish a dedicated, absolute, no question about it, source of revenue for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We cannot be successful in affordable housing in this city of Richmond without a dedicated, predictable source of revenue that is coming every day. If we want responsible, affordable housing developers to put units online and to maintain existing and to assist residents that need help, that are of income levels that need that help to be able to stay in their houses, it will not happen in Richmond without a dedicated source of revenue. The only reason we've made some success with the amount of money and the number of units that have come on in the past 5 years is because of the $20+ million that we got from one source, one time, because of COVID. And when we talk about COVID, the number of people who lost their lives, most of them, not all, fall within these income levels because of a lot of other disparities. So I know I'm asking a lot of you, and I know it takes a lot of you to support this. And trust me, I feel your pain. But I do believe that at some point we've got to make a decision to correct this travesty that the Grimm family is facing, and I want to get that done and behind me. And then I want to be assured that we have put things in place that we won't be facing the same option of rediverting funds that we've committed to this source. And I want you to be my worst enemy and the worst enemy of this city to make sure that we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Lynch?
Thank you. Obviously, as you know, emphatically supportive of the ordinance to pay, restitution to Mr. Grimm's family and himself. It's awful, and there's no doubt more cases on the way and coming in the years to come, as this current legislation continues to be in effect. But I think it's really important that the conversation we're having today has brought some really, really good dialogue to the chambers, things that I know all of us think about all the time. But I want us to be really careful when we're talking about the solutions and who is really being impacted here. And I know risk, we've talked ad nauseum about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as a tool. And I do believe that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was a tool that, if well funded, would have put us in a better posture than we are today. But we are at crisis level, and we don't have time for developers to build density, to build housing. And oh, by the way, to do it with a fund that serves mostly 60%, 80% of the AMI. There are very, very few units that are being built for the people that I think we all care about. And so what we're talking about here, and what, you all have heard me harp on this, is to really think differently about what the role of government is when you have an extremely greedy, tilted system that has created such vast wealth disparities in our community that it is damn near impossible to make ends meet on $50,000 a year. That's crazy. We have 61,000 people in this city that are making less than $30,000 a year. We have 18,000 that are sitting at or below the federal poverty level. That's $13,000 a year. And while we're having this discussion, there are plots to take our public housing residents, displace them. There are plots to rapidly gentrify our neighborhoods and make the cost of living even less affordable for the very people that we're talking about here. So love the goals of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but I challenge us to really look at that as the solution when it is our job to redistribute wealth and put it into the hands of the people that need it the most. That's why the Family Crisis Fund is so important, because it is one of the only avenues that we have. And you all know, social worker, work with homeless families often. And it is the only tool, one of the only tools that we have to outside of any rapid rehousing program, which very few people have access to in our system, but it is one of the only tools that we have to either prevent an eviction or get someone rapidly rehoused when they're in need of first month's rent, security deposit, application fees. Additionally, there are localities that have just gone light years above us and have taken that model of, instead of subsidizing, no offense to the developers, we love what you do, we need you too, but instead of subsidizing developers to build affordable housing, we can get those household budgets and those rents funded directly through a direct local rental subsidy. And that is a model that ensures that the very lowest income people at 30% of the AMI don't have to sit and wait for 1-2 units to be built at a time in a project, for 10 units to be built over here. Congratulations, we built 10 units of deeply affordable housing when the need is into the thousands. A local rental house voucher allows us, and that's a local subsidy, allows us to put money directly into household budgets tomorrow. You don't have to wait on people to build housing. But that might be a radical notion, because we're talking about redistributing wealth directly back into households. That is the stuff. If you want to prevent homelessness, if you want to keep people
housed, if you want to ensure that the folks that are being displaced or that will be displaced, no doubt, from the raising of Gilpin, the future raising of Hillside, Mosby, continued displacement from Creighton, you want to ensure that those folks have access to housing. We've got to create some subsidies. We've got to, because there's just not enough. There is not enough physical brick and mortar units, and not enough money that is going into that fund, nor will it ever, at the rate and the cost of bricks and sticks to build, to actually do what I think everybody in this room is aligned in their heart and soul on, and that is to take care of our family members in the city of Richmond who have been and continue to be pushed out, experience the trauma of poverty, the stress of not knowing if they can make it month to month. And that is our job, is to ensure that we redistribute these dollars to go to those families. Anything short of that is fluff and utter. I mean, it just is. And we got to do both. But as we have this conversation, let's think boldly. Let's support things that are going to do and address solutions that will ensure that the families that are at 30% of the AMI and below really and truly have access. Really and truly have access.
Thank you. Councilmember Trammell.
Madam President, I just want people to know that we have given money over and over and over to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I'm going to ask our CAO to please come up here. And I know that the other day he stood here and he told us how much money has been given, because I've gotten some calls after that meeting that people thought that we hadn't put any money in there. And I know that we have. I think the CAO, honey.
Yes, Mr. Donald, if you would.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't have those numbers in front
Well, I'll
of
tell
me.
you right now, the other day, last Tuesday, you really, I mean, I didn't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
but I
okay.
just don't like, because I know it's probably, we heard maybe 30,000, 30 million, 30
No,
some
that exceeds
million,
that.
because you just said
Yeah.
earlier, 20 million from the ARPA money that we got. I would like, I'm sorry, what? I didn't know if the pastor had said something. Because thank you. Because I know that we've been given money, and I've asked over and over, for a report that, I don't know if some of you, I'm not speaking for everybody, but if we could get a report to know where the money is going, because we really don't know, and the board members and all that. Because I know that one of my colleagues said that, I think it was in the 3rd district, she said it's not fair that, when you look at some of the board members, it's not fair that some of us from our districts have not been able to put people on different boards. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate what you said last Tuesday.
Yeah.
I've written it down, but I don't have it with me. But I would like to know how much money that has been in there, please. And I think I spoke to our chief of staff earlier today about it. And also, where has it gone?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
We'll make sure to get you as much information as we can. I spoke to you briefly earlier, so I'll make sure to pull your questions together, and then we'll make sure we go to the appropriate source to get you some information. So not a problem at all. I think the number that we provided is around 70 million. I noticed that folks are saying the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And while all the funds have not flown through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, they're going to affordable housing. I think as an administration, we can do a better job of making sure that you know where all of those dollars land and give you insight into those projects, the status and things of that nature. So I'm hearing from the council that they want to know more, understand more, and be able to follow those dollars. So we'll work to make sure that we do that. I'd also highlight, though, being one of those places that Councilmember Lynch was highlighting, saying that folks have done affordable housing in unique and different ways that have been very successful. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a tool. And I think in Richmond, it has been the primary tool. There are many tools that we can utilize. And I think what we want to make sure we do in this new opportunity to expand and improve legislation, is combine all of those tools that we have and figure out how to get the most return on investment for our residents. Sounds like you guys are united in that, and I think the administration is in lockstep with you. I think my letters and memorandums express that, and so we're all locked in on the same page. So I'm just looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and getting to work with you. So thank you for the opportunity to answer your questions, and if you have more, we'd gladly come back to discuss.
And just one more thing. I know
Yes,
that
ma'am.
this Thursday you're going to be at our 8th District meeting at the satellite. I know a lot of citizens are going to be there to ask you who is helping them to keep a roof over their head, to keep Dominion Power on, and to keep their utilities on. Because they're saying that we're pricing them with the assessments gone way up. Some people got hit 15, 20%. And these are seniors in many of the localities in my district that got hit very hard. They were down here tonight. I thought they were going to speak, but they didn't. But anyway, they're upset because they can't make it either. And they say we're taking their money to give it to others, but nobody is really looking at how are they going to stay in their home so they don't become homeless.
Yeah.
But
Well, listen,
thank you,
well,
Odie. I appreciate
ma'am.
you. And I wish I had brought those two questions to you the other day when you took your time to call me Saturday night. Thank
No
you.
problem. Looking forward to joining you this week. And again, we had senior programs in the various communities that I've come from, and I think there are opportunities here as well. I'm excited that the council is looking at housing holistically, serving everybody, those seniors that you're talking about, but folks in my age bracket and probably a little bit younger need affordable housing too. So we want to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity and equal footing. Again, thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. My thought on this is, I think I'm going to vote no. This is one of those things. At the end of the day, we have to pay this amount, and I'm not sure where else it's going to come from. But I think I'm going to vote no, just to symbolize for myself, and I know there are others on this body that have an interest in making sure that our laws are followed. I wanted to highlight, though, that as it pertains to affordable housing, I want to acknowledge my bias towards funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund over other tools that we have for affordable housing. What I like about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the oversight that it has. And that oversight is codified in the body that is overseeing how those funds are spent. I do know that we have other vehicles. We have performance grants that we have issued, but the hesitation that I have with the performance grants is I have not seen the math to ensure that we're getting our money's worth. For instance, we the way that a performance grant is that if there's a project and with a certain number of affordable units that we provide basically reimbursement for the additional value through the construction. Now the property's worth more, and we basically reimburse that. But I've not seen any math to see that we wouldn't be better off simply giving the residents directly a check for $200 a month. I don't know. And until I know, I'm just not sure what it's doing for us. And it concerns me that I don't know. It concerns me that the community doesn't know. I think that we all need to make sure that that we are getting the best return on those dollars, given the crisis that we're in. I'm concerned also about what's coming down the pike. This circumstance, right? The body convened at its final meeting before our summer recess at the end of July to discuss this matter, and we essentially had 2 weeks to address it. This was not the way great governance works. And there's now legislation. This could very well happen again. And so I encourage the administration to explore what are the other potential persons where there might be other payments that are made, and where's that money going to come from? if we are in this circumstance again. Are we able to make payments from our contingency reserves or other reserve funds to fund these types of things if this happens in the future? Are we considering this as a legislative priority? Because I do question the way that the legislation is structured, where the local municipality is on the hook for half, where I don't know that we really hold half of the responsibility in a case that is brought forth by the state. So I don't know if there are legislative priorities that need to be considered in this. I do think that we need to consider how we are going to address this problem should it come up again. And I also am hoping to have some clarity to ensure that we don't find more money in another cushion. So, every month we receive financial reports. I would love to see more comprehensive reporting to ensure that all of the funds are included in that. I'm certainly going to be looking to partner with colleagues to codify that. But in the spirit of collaboration, I would love to see additional detail in that monthly reporting that we receive as soon as the administration is able to compile that, to ensure that we and the community aren't surprised again down the road. Yeah, I think that those are my primary thoughts. We're definitely in a housing crisis. We're going to be talking about Gilpin Court. It would be lovely if we could have used the additional funding to ensure that residents at Gilpin Court have housing. I mean, we learned today that there's not enough vouchers, units to provide all the one-to-one housing. So this is something that is critical. It's unfortunate that this is the issue that brought this to light. I guess I am thankful for it, though. And I'm looking forward to seeing the papers brought forth. I appreciate the leadership of Council Member Robertson, and that we are going to be making additional payments into the fund. Would certainly support that. Again, with the understanding that my bias is towards that, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and eager to look forward and continue to strengthen the language in our code that we have to ensure that things don't fall through the cracks again. Thank you.
Thank you. Just really quickly for me, notwithstanding the state's statement to us that they will withhold our funds if we do not respond similarly in terms of their contribution to address what, without a question, was a gross, tragic miscarriage of justice in terms of Mr. Grimm. I don't know anyone who would say that was not the case. Notwithstanding the state, I feel that that is something we need to address, that we need to provide remedy for, to even, it doesn't come close to 45 years, doesn't come close, but we must address it. For me, affordable housing, quality, affordable, accessible housing is a absolute priority in the city, without a doubt. Absolute crisis in the city, as many of you continue, and all of us, I think for every member on this body, it has been and remains a crisis. And again, as referenced Councilmember Robertson, thank you for incredible leadership in that regard. I want to say that after conversations and meetings with the administration, the ordinance that we're looking at in terms of the source of funds has two components to it. And one component is any surplus that comes back from the sale. That is the component that the funds are coming from. Where we need to do work is making sure that when we rewrite this ordinance, it doesn't have from $0 to $1 million as an option, and then no statement about usage of any other funds that might remain in there after we've accommodated that particular guideline, because that's what it says. Rightly, wrong, that's what it says. 0 to 1 million out of that particular category that these funds are coming from. So while it might not be ideal, the ordinance does not speak to or preclude this particular usage. But the rewrite of this ordinance that I believe probably every member is going to sign on to will be absolutely clear that these are funds that will go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or at least to affordable housing, both categories, not just the surplus, but the roll off as well. And I am absolutely committed to that and working collaboratively to rewrite the legislation so there will be no lack of clarity in the process. But in this instance, again, in this instance, I am supporting the administration's identification because of it being consistent with what's in that ordinance, and because the administration was willing to go back and say, okay, there's about 3 million left after the 5.8. 2 million of that will go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the balance will be used to stand up this effort so we can continue in prospectively to generate dollars that allows us to have resources on an ongoing basis to go into the trust fund. That's what it's going to take. I'm looking all of you who we hear from, you know that is the reality, and so do we, and we're committed to that. At the same time, committed to making sure we address this, again, gross and tragic injustice. Councilwoman Trammell has already asked, and Mr. Donald, you've indicated, and even doing informal, having a report back that has a level of specificity that not just the amounts that have been earmarked and allocated by district, but also the other categories that you speak of, Mr. Donald, as well. There are performance grants, there are tax abatements, we do infrastructure as incentives. What are all of those pieces that have been utilized to address affordable housing so we can make informed decisions? But the legislation must be changed. It is unacceptable as it is going forward, and I'm committed to working with all members, and I think pretty much it's all members who are desirous of having this ordinance be rewritten or a new ordinance. So we're clear that those two sources, those dollars go towards affordable housing. And with that, Madam Clerk, I think we could call the question.
Council is now voting on ordinance number 2025-188 as presented. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes, I'm sorry, no.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell?
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan? And President Newbill?
Aye.
That paper has been adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's proceed.
Next is a motion to amend and continue ordinance number 2025-046, which authorized a community unit plan at 1300 Westwood Avenue for a mixed-use development consisting of a maximum of 140 residential units, a community center with reception facility and non-medical office, a preventative healthcare facility, 2 private schools, and a 50-unit dormitory, and modified the plan for the fence required between the subject property and 1409 Palmyra Avenue, modifying the plan for the development of tennis courts to update references and modify and add terms and conditions related to the tennis courts. Councilmember Gibson, will you make the motion to amend and continue this ordinance to the Monday, September 22nd council meeting?
So moved.
Councilmember Abubakar, will you second that motion, please?
Second.
Council is now voting on the motion to amend and continue ordinance number 2025-046 to the Monday, September 22nd council meeting as stated. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell, Ms. Abubakar,
Aye.
Vice President Jordan,
Aye.
and President Newbill.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Madam President, would you now like to proceed to the expedited resolution for this evening?
I would. I was just trying, of all the papers I now have, pull it up. I have it. Yes, please.
The paper for expedited consideration this evening is a resolution to reverse the decision of the Commission of Architectural Review denying an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 2201 Venable Street regarding construction of a 3-story detached single-family dwelling by fully approving such application. I would need a motion to expedite consideration of this paper. Councilmember Trammell, will you make that motion?
So moved, Madam Clerk.
And Vice President Jordan, will you second that?
Second.
Council is now voting on the motion to expedite consideration of the proposed resolution as read. Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Robertson, Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Trammell,
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar,
Aye.
Vice President Jordan,
Aye.
and President Newbill.
Aye.
That paper is before you.
Thank you. With this, I would like to ask that we have benefit of our Mr. Donald, benefit of our planning staff's comment relative to this particular item. I think there's some specificity here that he can certainly clarify. Needed specifics that he would provide clarity.
Good evening, Kevin Javon, Director of Planning and Development Review. This case, as it would before CAR, our staff had recommended approval of this case, subject to a number of conditions regarding the design. However, CAR, during their deliberations, decided to recommend against approval and disapproved the plan. And so staff would be supportive of council's decision to move forward with approval of the plan if it were still subject to the conditions laid out in the staff report, which I believe the applicant is willing to agree to. And therefore, we would also support that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gibson,
Yes.
before we go into public hearing,
I just want to revise, just for the symbolism of it, I want to revise my vote to be no to approve the expedited consideration, just to be on record. This seems like a lot to digest at short notice.
thank you. With that, I would like to proceed. As shared by staff, this is a matter that the applicant has agreed to be compliant with the changes that were brought forward as subsequent to that CAR meeting. I mean, and that's really the gist of the matter. So with that, what I'd like to do is proceed with public hearing on the paper. Those persons present desirous of speaking in opposition to the paper, if you would please come forward. Any desirous of speaking in opposition? Seeing none, do we have persons desirous of speaking in favor of the paper, if you would come forward?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, good evening. My name is Will Gillette with Baker Development Resources. I represented the applicant both on the CAR case and this appeal at 2201 Venable Street. First and foremost, I would like to take the time to thank CAR staff, both Kim Chen and CAR Secretary Alex Dandridge. They both spent significant amounts of time meeting with me and working with me as we went through this case during the CAR process. The applicant did receive a recommendation of approval with conditions from city CAR staff, and they do agree to construct a dwelling consistent with that recommendation of approval. So this appeal is only needed because, despite the recommendation of staff, it was not approved by the CAR commissioners themselves. Over the course of 3 meetings, when we went back multiple times, again, with that recommendation of approval, we were just not able to get clear guidance there. However, we are willing to make all of the changes as recommended by CAR staff, and we appreciate you taking the time to look at this case. I'm glad to answer any questions that y'all may have as well.
Thank you. Any other persons present desires of speaking in favor? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Bring it back to the body for discussion. Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Madam President. So just in terms of process, I noticed that there were no persons that came to speak in opposition of this paper, and I'm wondering, when was this, uploaded? Was it, in terms of being on the agenda, is it realistic to assume that anyone would know to be able to come and speak on it? And I'm wondering if someone could provide some guidance regarding why this matter is time sensitive, and if the body could have more time. This is a lot of information, and as it pertains to anything related to historic preservation, there's a lot of interest in this in the city right now, and I just am wondering, if it is possible to allow the body to have more time.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. And I would ask, Will, if you would come forward. This has been out there for quite some time. It's not new. It's not overnight. Could you give us some sense of the time frame?
Certainly. I apologize, I don't have the exact date. This project was initially taken to CAR, I believe it was the fall of last year. So it went forward. There was actually a companion paper on the adjacent parcel. So they ended up going before CAR 3 times. So that's public hearing each time. The other parcel did pass. Unfortunately, despite the recommendation of staff for the CAR approval, we were unable to get clear guidance from the CAR commissioners, who did not recommend approval on the case. So it has been before the CAR, like I believe 3 times, each time a public hearing. We filed for the appeal, I believe is in February of last year, or this year, sorry. And so we've just been kind of waiting for it to go through the process to come before you today.
So,
sorry, Ms. Gibson.
The other piece of the question, when was this paper up? Did the public have an opportunity to know that we would be voting on this evening?
Madam Clerk, or
Madam President, this paper has not been made available to the public, not through our system.
Okay.
And typically we do not upload the expedited resolutions before they are considered on the agenda.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Just to your point, and based on, as I'm hearing the concern, I would certainly, there is a recommendation, I'm assuming, coming forward to continue to the next council session.
Yes, I mean, I think that we want to make sure the fact that I studied I generally respect folks that work in this business. I would presume that the Commission of Architectural Review had fair reason to deny it. I want to ensure that we have clear understanding of that, and that the participants, the residents, are aware that the body is voting on this. So that would be my hope, to ensure that there is time for the community to weigh in.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. I duly noted and do hear you. Councilwoman Robertson, before we go forward with the recommendation there.
Thank you, Madam President. Considering that you supporting a recommendation to continue it to the next council meeting, I would only request that I hear the administration saying that the recommendation as it relates to CAR, that the developer has agreed to carry those out. I think clearly just stating what they are specifically and what has been agreed to would be helpful, just for not only our full understanding, but the community at large. And I'm not going to elaborate on or request that that be presented at this time, inasmuch that you've agreed that you're willing to have the paper continued for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Councilwoman Gibson going back, I'm assuming a motion to continue for 2 weeks to allow for the posting, but also the additional information can also be provided, especially in addition to Councilwoman Robertson's items. Is that
Yes, that's
correct?
a great idea.
And
The question I have also, Madam President, is
Yes, Councilwoman.
because this is an expedited, and as the clerk has mentioned, whether or not, what's the procedure when the paper comes before us as an expedited, what other considerations we have to make as it relates to the paper being known and posted publicly?
Madam Clerk, can this come forward as a regular agenda item for our next council session or?
yes, it can. This resolution will be formally introduced, or it is formally introduced and will be uploaded for public viewing by tomorrow. But I do need to know if the council would like this paper to now go to the land use meeting on September 17th for first review and then come back to council on the 22nd.
I think for me, we're observing the process that is available. And CAR staff have spoken to, look past Mr. Donald, to our staff have spoken to the entity's agreement to be compliant with what CAR asks for. So for me, that does not then require committee requirement as opposed to the posting, the additional information, an opportunity for citizens to come and speak to this at our next meeting, if that would be acceptable. So might I have a motion to move this to the agenda for our next meeting? And without having committee, because we have benefit of CAR staff, we have the entity has indicated, yes, we'll comply. I think, if I might have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council is now voting on the motion to continue this resolution to its council's September 22nd council meeting. Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Robertson, Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Trammell,
Aye.
Ms. Abubakar,
Aye.
Vice President Jordan,
Aye.
and President Newbill.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you. Let's proceed with the remainder of the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Council members, a list of legislation for introduction this evening currently consists of item number 1 and items number 3 through 39. That list of introduction papers for this evening has been provided to you, and the legislation on this list is hereby introduced as presented. A copy of the list is currently available for public inspection at the rear of the council chamber, and an electronic copy and copies of the listed legislation will be available on the city's website on Tuesday, September 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, at this time, we will proceed to reports and announcements. And I'll start, Councilmember Abubakar.
Thank you, Madam President. I know you like to be first.
I mean, I can.
No, I'm good. I'm prepared. As a AB my whole life, I am always first, so I'm okay. I have a few announcements, but I also do want to take a moment to address what I think is sort of a undercurrent of this meeting, which is, and we've talked about this, and I'm not going to belabor it because we are all exhausted and want to go home. But we're at a crossroads as a city, and the decisions that we make in this chamber and that the administration makes as administrators of our policy and budget, will very much tell us who we are going to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so I really appreciated the gentleman's comment about that affordable housing should not be diametrically opposed to human rights in any way, and the fact that we're having these conversations is good, but also is very, very scary. And I think as we go forward, we have to, as a body, really sit with one another and think about why we were elected, why we choose to do this work, and why what kind of city we want to be a part of for the next 4 years, at a minimum, right? So I'm just saying that to say that I'm taking a lot of this. I took a lot of what was said tonight to heart, and I know that the conversation about affordable housing, I would say this: the conversation about affordable housing needs to not just be in the city of Richmond. I hope that my friends at New Virginia Majority and at Risk are also holding the counties accountable to this, because this is not a city issue. This is a regional issue. And so I'm not saying don't hold us accountable, but I hope to see you at Board of Supervisors meetings, because they also have big budgets and they have decided to use data centers. So they have money for that. So go and make sure that they are using their money correctly, and that they are using it in the same way you want to have it, because it cannot be on the burden entirely of the city of Richmond. Okay, so now that I've gotten off that soapbox, we have Westover Hills Neighborhood Association meeting this Wednesday at 7 p.m. at Westover Hills United Methodist Church. If you want to join me at 6:15, I will be talking to the community about improvements to Jank Road. I know that there's some questions around that, and I want to make sure that I'm answering those. The 43rd Street Festival of the Arts, which is one of the most beloved traditions in the district, is happening this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come out there, buy some art from local artists, and support a good cause. The Boulevard Bridge, unfortunately, if you want to come visit us on the south side, do not take the Boulevard Bridge because it will be closed for routine inspections on that day. But we have already talked to our partners at RMA, and we'll make sure that that is not the case for next year for the Festival of the Arts. Forest Hill Neighborhood Association is having their meeting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th. So is Southampton. And then, of course, we're having our 4th District meeting with School Board Member Hedgepeth on Wednesday, the 17th at Huguenot High School cafeteria. So consider it our back to school. We'll be talking about all things RPS, funding, and all the good things that are happening in RPS, but also all the things that we need to work on as a community. So with that, I am done.
Thank you, Councilmember Albemarle. Councilmember Trammell.
Thank you. That was good. I just want to say that you're right, because the city can't take on everything. Got to have you all speak in Chesterfield County and Henrico County and make sure that they're on board too. Because like I said, I know I'm speaking for my district. I have older population, and they are struggling very hard to keep a roof over their head and to be able to stay in their homes. And that's one thing that I will definitely always defend is my seniors in my district. Also, I want to say that it's good that, we will be getting reports now and know where the money's going or how it's being spent. I would mostly like to say evenly in some of our districts, because I know that probably all of our districts have some means that we need affordable housing and they need help. Also, this Thursday night is our 8th district meeting. That's 9/11. 25 at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Our CAO will be at our meeting to answer a lot of questions from the citizens that are very upset about our assessments that have went up so high that they're not able to afford them this year. And we have to realize that next year there's going to be a freeze, is that right? And then we've been told by the assessor, Richard McKeithen, that there are going to double in 2028. Yeah. And I know what I know what mine got, and I know I've been getting a lot of calls and from even from the first and the second and the third district, people are so upset. And the fourth, and Sarah and I have been talking back and forth. So what do we do? Also, we got collective bargaining that's going to be come up. That's another $25 million. And we have so many people, city employees, that it would break your heart to see how they work every day hard for the city and they can barely make it. And I know that there was a citizen that came down here tonight that talked about that she has family members that live with her. You know, I'm grateful that she's taken in family members to get them off the street. I'd love to see more of that. And I know in my district, that's what a lot of grandmothers are doing, taking in their grandchildren, taking in their children so they can have not have to sleep in a car because they would be homeless. Also, at our meeting is going to be Colette McKeachin. She's going to be at our meeting to speak to us about some things that she would like to share with us. Also, our police chief will be there, the fire chief, Chip Decker from the Richmond Ambulance Authority. He'll be giving us an update. And I'd like to ask this question, and I will ask it from our CAO. What is affordable? What is affordable? Not only in our city, but all over. Because I know what the developers are saying that it costs to build these apartments, these houses. And I know that one of my colleagues was talking about how cheap they're being built. Well, we keep asking, we want something what people can afford. Think about it. Isn't that right? Do y'all know how much a gallon of paint's costing? Do you know how much a roof is costing for like a 2-bedroom house? I know. But anyway, like I said, I just want to make sure that surrounding counties are helping the city of Richmond because our population is growing. When I got on council the first time, it was like 193,000. It's up to 222,000. 222,000. And I think my colleague spoke about the income that would people, you know, how they're going to survive. There's not jobs out here for, I guess, like a lot of people can't make 150,000, 100,000. And look at all the restaurants now. A lot of them are going to robots and stuff like that with their, you know, you put your card in the machine and you go over to get this, get that. That's taking away people's jobs. Go look in some of the maybe Lowe's or Home Depot. There's no cashier. It's odd. Or go look at some of the grocery stores. They're getting rid of the people working there because they're telling me, what we're going to do? We have no job. It's all self-service. But anyway, I'm going to stop there. If anybody has any, and let me just say this. When we were building those precincts, first precinct, second precinct, now, I don't think not one council person was against it. We were talking about, we need these precincts, these police precincts for our police officers. I don't hear no one screaming, thank God that, because I'm getting a brand new fire station, Station 21 on Richmond Highway, that they've been waiting, at least it's one of the oldest ones. It's finally coming after years of years. But anyway, if you have any questions, you can call my home at 804-233-7382. You can call my cell at 804-240-5050. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Trammell. Councilwoman Lynch.
Thank you. And amen to all my previous colleagues' comments. It's a really, really, really important point about the regional discussion. Very important. So here we go. We have got a lot of meetings coming up here. 2 weeks ago, we held a 5th District Code Refresh meeting in Southside. We had an amazing turnout. There's like 70 people there. We're going to be hosting 2 more meetings in September. Tomorrow, on the 9th, with my colleague in the 2nd district, doing a joint a code refresh meeting. And then, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, in the 2nd. Well, I actually, we hopefully maybe we will be hosting. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I spoke that to life. But we have on the 9th, I'm sorry, I was reading and thinking at the same time. On the 9th tomorrow, my colleague in the 2nd will be hosting a joint code refresh meeting. And next Thursday, on the 18th, we're going to give the opportunity to comment and get more questions answered on the code refresh in person. And this meeting will start at 5:30 with open tables presentation at 6 p.m. and a return to tables after the presentation. Caroline Civic Association is meeting tomorrow night at the Unity Church at 6 p.m. DPW will be attending to discuss traffic safety in the area. Maymont Civic League is meeting next Monday at the Maymont Foundation at 7 p.m. Congratulations. We at the 5th District, we have many of our civic associations. We have helped them form safety committees, safety subcommittees. Congratulations to our Swansboro West Safety Committee, who has effectively gotten their speed limit lowered on Midlothian Turnpike between Belts Boulevard and Hull Street from 35 to 30 miles per hour, effective immediately. And we should be seeing that new signage installed along the corridor in the next couple of days. Fifth Baptist is partnering with VCU Health to support individuals living with dementia and their care partners beginning Tuesday, September 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is going to be a pop-up cafe. If you care for seniors or those that are having memory care challenges, definitely attend that one. That's a good one to attend. Finally, speaking of seniors, our Senior Bag Bill Day will be going down at the mayor's during the Mayor's Day of Service. And our 5th District Mayor's Day of Service is going to be celebrated at the Randolph Community Center on Saturday, September 20th. We are going to be building bags for seniors at that Randolph Community Center and then delivering those bags. We're going to build at 10 a.m. and then start delivering immediately after. Space is limited, so please sign up if you are so inclined. It really, our senior bag program is amazing. We love delivering to our seniors, and it's one of the best ways that we can get them information and build connectivity with them in our neighborhoods. Southside neighbors near or who travel near Hull Street, please mark your calendars for Tuesday, September 30th at 6 p.m. DPW is going to host an informal informational meeting about the upcoming work on Hull Street. Ooh, you'll be there, Reva. The informal, that's right, our big project coming up on Hull Street between Cowarden and Southside Plaza. We're going to be leveling the street, taking it back, installing new curbs, business aprons, as well as remarking all of the streets with new traffic travel patterns. And this is being done to increase safety and improve the overall look of the corridor. And the work will require shutting down the street down a couple of blocks at a time. So definitely want y'all to be involved and informed. And the location I don't think we've confirmed a location for the meetup on September 30th. But keep a lookout in our newsletter and we'll let you know. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lynch. Councilwoman Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'm just going to revisit affordable housing a little bit. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a tool. It certainly is not the fix everything as it relates to affordable housing. So I think it's important that we all recognize that. And the discussion this afternoon certainly was not to suggest that it is the answer to how we get to a place of affordable housing. And when we talk about what is affordable housing, so we often talk about the development community is doing housing, average 60% of the area median income, which is about $48,000 a year. So we should take that in consideration when we talk about who we're hiring and what we're paying them. At $15 minimum salary a year, we're not coming up to $48,000, so they're not at 60% area median income. And when we talk about 30% area median income, we're talking about $24,000 or less. And we have a lot of families that are way, way, way below $24,000. And housing costs is housing costs. Lumber pretty much sells for the same price. There are nonprofits that we work with that have means to leverage some of our development costs to bring the cost down. Everything is about leveraging. Affordable Housing Trust Fund is about gap financing. It's not about paying the total cost. It's about covering that gap so we can reduce the cost to the end takeouter, and that is the renter or the homeowner. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. No one tool is going to be sufficient. And collectively, hopefully, we'll move closer to a will. Pre-COVID, the most that this council and this administration put into Affordable Housing Trust Fund was $1 million or less. Okay, so we can talk. We got to go beyond talking what is the right thing to do and when it's the right time to fund all of what needs to be done and what can the city afford. And I agree. This is not a city problem. This is a regional problem. And Richmond tends to get the majority of the extreme low income because we provide public housing. There's nowhere else in the county do you have as much public housing as the Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority provide. Nowhere in the county. It's a majority. We have one or two spots here or there. Yes, the counties have revenues that they get from their data center that they've decided that they're going to put X millions of dollars of revenue that is gained from that into affordable housing. So yes, there is a strong need for partnership. And I think that we all need to be at the table talking about how do we make that happen. 6th District. So one of the challenges that we are having, in addition to land use values, appraisal values, is that we are looking at rezoning. And we heard a lot of that tonight from folk that came down to talk about, what does it cost? And is it the corporate community? We have a major change that we are in the process of doing. I'm honored that you all asked me to serve on that board. We meet frequently. We're having meetings all over the city. We're asking for feedback, and I just want to encourage people to continue to do that. I plan to do a special meeting and tour of districts, of locations in my district that is going to be tremendously impacted, that people are concerned about redlining and they're concerned about displacement. And we've had a study that was done by Housing Opportunity, made equal, presented to this council, prove displacement, 3rd District, 5th District primarily. We haven't found a way to address it. We need to. My meeting is on September the 27th, and it'll be in the morning, and we will have conjoining discussions after the bus tour. On September the 21st, which is the St. Elizabeth Church is in the process of building Greenway Village, which is an all affordable housing development. They're having their groundbreaking ceremony on the 21st, and you're all welcome to come. That is going to be located at 2712 2nd Avenue. Secondly, I'm grateful, and Councilperson Jones and I, we serve at your pleasure on the Greater Richmond Transit Board. We're having a retreat on the 27th of September, I think. 30th of September from 9:30 to 1:30. If there are concerns about bus rapid transit, the new bus rapid transit that is coming from Chamberlain, that is going through the heart of the city, down Hall Street to Midlothian to Chesterfield, please reach out to us. We want to hear what your concerns are so we can bring that information to the board as well. Hall Street over Manchester Canal Bridge replacement, that issue is a big deal for the residents that live in Manchester. Urban Design Committee is having a final submission for the replacement of that bridge. That meeting is going to take place this week. There will be follow-up action coming back to the Planning Commission, as well as the project is due to go out for RFP. If you please, I would ask you to check your website for the Urban Design Committee meeting that is going to be scheduled and make sure that you weigh in and provide your feedback and comments